is going on, everybody? This is Arts of IBMOR with my guest of the evening, Artisan MC. And we're going to take a look into Gen X. What's up, big brother?
What's up, Doughboy?
Not much, not much.
Finally up and around, I see.
Yeah, something like that.
Boy, that is more.
Yeah, really. But so since we're gonna be talking about Gen X today, what year were you born? Just get that off the bat.
It's 1973.
73. So you're actually older than my oldest brother. I think he was born in 75.
Yeah, it's funny thinking of that year now, thinking, yes, I am an old dog.
Yeah.
Getting up there.
That you are.
Thankfully, but remiss.
So, for what you can remember of the 70s,
I ain't that old.
you don't remember much of the 70s?
No, I said I'm not that old. He said for what you can remember.
Hey, I'm just saying, man. I mean, you were a young kid. You probably just like, damn, I forgot about that shit. But anyway, what was how did your life grow up in the 70s? How was that?
My life in the 70s was all right. I mean, I'm the oldest son of a young teenage mother. So my life in the early 70s, for the first part of it, I was in between my mother's home and my foster mother's home. Mm-hmm. And then I was with my mother, and then we were kind of staying with people because she was not staying with her mother anymore. She had, basically got put out or moved on or wanted to be grown, whatever the hell happened. So we were staying with people, but the world around me was interesting just to see how people interacted with each other. There was fun. There was some screwed up stuff that happened, but for the most part, it was fun. Notably, in recent history, when last week I was playing at Bounce Rock roller skate and then sent my mother that video and remembered it, she filled in a lot more stuff that was happening in that time frame to show that it was a fun time. It was, in some senses exploratory for me, but for her it was a visual decline where things started to get a little bit more violent. So this is like pre-crack era. It's just coming in, So things started getting a little bit more violent, and looking back in an older man's body, being able to look through the history and see what was happening at that time, I could see more of the social and financial decay that was happening around that time. I can see it a little bit more clearly now and understand why we were doing certain things. So, government cheese, the powdered milk and all that shit. Yes, I remember that stuff. And for me, it was fucked up, but normal in some ways at that time. It was just what was happening.
Gotcha.
But understanding the greater social context of what was happening as an older man, okay, I can see how screwed up it was. So,
gotcha.
7 years from this year.
And what were, I guess, going into the 80s? Since I guess in the 80s, that's probably where you were pretty much in middle school and high school, right?
Yeah, 80s I was in elementary school more so. So that was the time that the tape really was recording on everything. As opposed to when I was in the 70s and not being able to be out in the world completely on my own. By the time the 80s, the late 70s and the early 80s picked up, yeah, I was out there in the world because I was taking care of my younger brother, and it was me and him out there a lot of the times because mama was working.
Yeah, because they called the Gen X the Latch Key kids. Like you guys had to work staying by yourselves most of the time and had to do most of the stuff by yourself.
Yep, that was me for, I think it started in third grade. That's where I learned that term latch key, because I had my key on a white piece of yarn that my mother told me keep around my neck. Don't take it off. Don't lose it. And when you come home, when you get out of school, you and your brother walk this way, all the way home, get in this house, and call me when you get in the house. I'm going to call. You need to be there when I call. Make sure you got home and made it home safely. So, yes, we were that first generation. At the time, I didn't know it because it was a bunch of kids walking home from school. But like I said, older man's context, you understand that was the generation that first started doing that shit. That you had and had to do it yourself. So
yeah, because most of the time, both parents had to go to work just to make ends meet. So the kid, so most of the kids had to come on walk. Usually, it would be the it would be the mother that would be there for the kids to be there when they got off the bus. Now you guys had to, go in, fix you a sandwich, and wait for your mom and dad to come home so that way dinner can be made.
Yeah, you caught the bus yourself. You got off of it yourself and made it home yourself, and you better have your ass in the house. And that was, I'm not thinking we're the first generation to actually have chores and responsibilities, but say third grade, you're probably about what, 6, 7 or 8, and being responsible for somebody younger than you at that time. And having that responsibility of these are certain things you need to have. You need to be cognizant of time, being able to show up to places on time, get to places on time, get yourself home safely, watch out for dangers on the way to get from school to home. This is how far it is. Keeping your younger sibling in line and trying to manage a younger child who doesn't know all these rules. You have to teach them these rules. At the same time, learning them yourself as you go to get back to a place where there is relative safely. Because, look, it wasn't. My brother's father was pretty much an asshole, and he was doing a lot of shady shit outside of just kicking my mama's ass that left that situation not necessarily cool. Couldn't be relied on to do simple shit. Okay, so doing all that as a young child and taking those responsibilities on, even once you got into the house, which is okay, you need to do these chores, you need to get this homework done, you need to make sure your brother's homework is done, you need to make sure, this house is clean and have things prepared so when mama come in, she can cook and go sit down and watch TV and not be thinking about y'all motherfuckers for a little while.
Right.
It was all fed into that Gen Xers had to grow up taking care of themselves a lot more. And that's why I don't fault a lot of the dysfunction that I see in Gen Xers, because you did have to raise yourself. So what do you expect if you throw a child into the wilderness and they raise themselves for 15 years? What do you expect to come out the other side? Somebody who knows how to eat with the right fork and stuff like that? No, they raise themselves. So they're going to have some shit that's not exactly, germane with everybody else who, had the 2-parent household and the etiquette and the manners and shit. They're not going to have it. So it's just what it is. It's just the conditions.
As far as the socialization for Gen X, where do you see that most from school? Like, do you see that more so in the television? Do you see that more so in school? Like, which part?
For me, I would say it was both. Because socialization from television can push you one narrative, right? But Gen Xers understand that television is just television. It's all make believe, right? We're just playing, right? All of this stuff on here is not actually real, and they were never really pitching it as being really real. Even Gen Xers who love, WWF at the time, wrestling, we understood that it was fake, but it was still fun. So that's why we didn't have a problem going out there and, atomic leg dropping our friends in the backyard in the grass, because it's just play. It's just what we did. Yeah, we acted it out, but it's just for play. The real indoctrination, and this is an older man looking at it again, seeing things that I had a problem with back in the day, was really in school. The television put the images out there for you that you would see it and it would just wash over you, because kids are not thinking about all this stuff on that higher adult cognitive level. What will this lead to later on? We're just watching it, right? We either like some of the stuff or we don't like some of the stuff. This is why I recommend that people who at least when studying media, things that you see, movies that you like when you were a kid, go back and watch them when you've gotten older and see what images and what ideas were being pushed to you before you even understood what they were. You'll see it in there. It's always been there. It's always in there. They push the stuff to you. Some of it flies over your head. Some of it goes directly into your subconscious. Some of it you might act out physically in the world because you learn that this is the way you act in certain situations. But between the two, media and school, I would say school had more of the impact on me because that was where, for me, I think the change was that black boys are just problems in school.
Mm-hmm.
And they would really quickly try to shuffle you out of the school system, be it suspension or something else, when you understood that this woman is not really speaking to me. She's treating me like I'm some fucking criminal, like I'm doing all this stuff. I'm not. Look, I just not getting it the way y'all doing it. I really got it, and you need to give me something else to do to be more engaged because I'm bored. And that was where I really saw and understood that the feminization of the boys in our school system was really starting because how I acted in class, which was, I got this and now I'm fucking bored, I need something else to do, was treated as something that I needed to be sent to the principal for. Not that I was talking or doing anything else like that in class. I would just bring stuff to occupy my mind and my desk. I'd bring my Transformers to school and play in my desk with them. Or I would draw. That was not okay. You needed to be sitting there and just, staring at the teacher and being indoctrinated. And this was always a woman. I usually had problems in the school, and it was usually with an older Caucasian woman who was trying to get me to conform to some kind of standard that I didn't know existed. Look, I'm bored. And I'm entertaining myself while I'm bored. But that's a problem because you want me to sit there and still be bored. So I got sent to the principal's office a lot for that or fighting.
I think that has a lot to do with some of the sentiments at that time because, like I said, I didn't know they were still until recently, a couple of months or a year ago, that I didn't know they were still combating busing all the way up to the 80s. And when I saw that that video of white parents still fighting against integrated schools all the way up to the mid 80s.
Damn, I can believe it.
Some of that could have been because you had racist ass teachers.
You did have racist ass teachers. And I don't think that actually, for me, I don't think that stuff left until like the late 80s. Because I could say, me personally, my brother was a victim, even though he did what he got in trouble for. My brother was a victim of that kind of shit, that kind of racist shit. He got expelled from the school for doing something that the kid that told on him got to stay in the school for. Same shit. He was right there with him. But because he snitched on him and there was a little bit of a thing with kicking the black boys out of school, that little Mexican boy got to stay. My brother got expelled. I'm like, so to me, it's an indication that there was already a push to get us out of the school and to keep it in a tribalism sort of sense that, well, since this boy is with us, well, fuck this other one because he's not. And I've seen that throughout growing up, which is why I'm not a fan of that over tribalism to where common sense and right and wrong is thrown out the window for, well, they just part of my group, so fuck you.
Mm-hmm.
That's human nature. I know, I understand it, but I don't have to like it, and I don't.
Right. What else did I want to say? Let's talk about the early 90s, because that's when you're in your man years.
That's what you call it. Yeah, my teens were fun.
In the 90s? No, you would have been graduated by what?
I graduated high school in 92. Mind you, I was got held back 1 year in elementary school because they wanted me to be with kids closer to my age. And
Gotcha.
so that put me as being like the older kid in a crew of younger kid. So when I graduated in '92, I was done with teenagers. I'd been done with teenagers. I was over. You know, I was a little bit more mature mentally for
Gotcha.
them. I wasn't. I don't like teenagers. So yeah, about 90. I was just getting ready to get out of high school. I graduated in '92 at 18. So yeah, it could be many years. You can call it that. But I was having a lot of experiences back then. So
Yeah.
go ahead.
So yeah. So how was the '90s for you guys?
'90s was an interesting time because there was a lot of creativity circling around in the '90s, but there were a lot also of social changes, visible social changes in the '90s. And I just take this as being from '89 up until '92. In that 4-year span, we saw a war, at least almost 2 wars.
Gulf War and
Gulf War, Desert Storm, Desert Shield. You saw peace treaties with the gangs. You saw the LA riots, the Loma Prieta earthquake. At least if you're on the West Coast, you saw the Loma Prieta quake and the destruction of a bridge and the rebuilding of a city.
Oklahoma City bombing.
Oklahoma City bombing, more domestic terrorist shit happening. You saw shit even back in the '80s. You saw a president be shot. Not killed, but actually shot, which was Ronald Reagan, which was something new for me. Like, why does this even matter? Fuck that old dude. Like, okay. But you saw a lot of real hallmark moments in history happening during that time, and you're living through them and witnessing them, getting to see what the reaction of people around them are as it's actually happening. That's why I get kind of pissy with some of the younger cats when they come in and talk about this time, and I have to reiterate, did you live in that time? Because it's one thing to look at a time frame through the understanding of whoever wrote whatever. That's one way to look at it. It is. It's one way to look at it. And who's to say if their account is true or not? You have to talk to people who actually lived through that time and can remember. You know, this is the sentiment of what people on the ground were actually talking about. This academic is full of shit. I mean, this is one of the reasons why I have such disdain for Michael Eric Dyson. Look, this motherfucker gained a lot of money and a lot of praise for talking about stuff that we lived through as Gen Xers in the '90s, and he is off base and wrong about a lot of it. So he can profit on it, telling people who didn't live in that time about it. But anybody who did can tell you he is full of shit. He didn't know these people. He didn't talk to these people. He's just making up whatever he wants to about the time that he's trying to get on for. People who lived that time don't agree with it. Don't. So that's where I get on this stuff about actually knowing and talking to the people who were in that time. How you doing, man? Sorry, I'm in my shop today and got a customer.
Oh, yeah, okay. Let me go to the chat while he is taking care of a customer.
All right, I'm back.
Okay. Oh, that was quick.
Yeah, I just had to give him the spiel that I wasn't crazy in here talking to myself.
No, it's all good. Let's see. Well, let's talk about something a little bit more fun. 80s music.
I love 80s music.
A lot of people do. Let's talk about it.
Okay. What you want to know?
Well, I kind of do know about it, but I'm just saying for the audience.
No, what's the question?
Okay. How did you take in like 80s music? Like, because I know you are part of the MTV generation.
Yes, I am.
So I will say when you first saw Run DMC and Aerosmith on MTV, what was your feelings on that?
Run DMC came out for me. I was in elementary school, and it was they were a big thing. And this was me really getting into rap outside of my mother's generation, who was into the Sugar Hill Gang and stuff like that, which I had heard and memorized long before running into Run DMC. So Rock the House was a big thing. Raising Hell was huge in the 80s, so much so that I even got to meet Run DMC at one of their Harputs Adidas, signing things. I got to get out of school early, to go down to Harputs in Richmond and get to see Run DMC and get a poster signed by them, see them in, flesh, and have that poster on my wall for a while. So seeing them on MTV with Aerosmith, I thought it was something really different, but I actually liked it because being born in the 70s and a child of the 80s, I remember MTV starting. I remember watching MTV where that's all that was on there, was all these rock videos and stuff like that. And it wasn't that big of a deal. It was, you were more excited to see music videos on there as opposed to, well, where's my representation? It was coming, apparently. So that was a big thing because it was, for me, it was rap getting some legitimacy outside of what was just something these broke people do out on the streets to being, it's something that, a viable form of art that you can actually make a living off of doing. And this was the first mega rap group in that generation doing it with another mega group, even though they were helping them, just like one hand was helping the other, which is exposing people to Aerosmith who might not have even known who Aerosmith was before or cared. Hope that answered your question.
Right. I mean, I remember that during that time, a little bit, how people were talking about it. I was like, what? How old was I when that video came out? I'm like 6, maybe. I was about 6. But as far as hip hop, because you guys are the hip hop generation, do you need to get that? Yes, he does need to get that.
Yeah, I'm getting it right.
Okay. What's that? AB Media, Diggy, Il Spain, Hostile Adept, Gen X in the house, Judge Dre in here. What's up?
All right, sorry about that.
No, you good. I know you at work. It's all good. Just gotta pay for it later.
Whose house?
Run's house.
Art's house.
But as far as hip hop is concerned, because you guys created hip hop, so
go ahead.
But how did you experience hip hop during the 80s and the 90s?
Oh, that's a fun story. Me experiencing hip hop in the early 80s was first through UTFO, right? Outside of the Sugar Hill Gang or whatever, which I would consider old school hip hop. Okay, listening to Sugar Hill Gang, Africa Bambaataa, and them, to me is old school hip hop because that's what came before this next wave in the 80s, which was Curtis Blow, Run DMC, Houdini, which I love, UTFO, Roxanne Shante, all these people. And rapping was something new at that time where I'm in elementary school and kids are actually learning how to rap. Because I'm in elementary school in California. We're learning how to rap at that time. We were having rap groups at that time. So there was a couple of things going on in this early 80s, which was rap and breaking. And for kids in my neighborhood in California, that's what we were getting into. That's what we were starting to do. So for me, it ended up being something that I got into and started doing, which is I was in my own rap group back in the 80s in elementary school. And my little rap name was Master T. It's very simple, but we were in elementary school, like 5th grade, rapping at our talent shows and stuff and having rap battles with each other on the playground at recess. on the bus, on the AC Transit going home. That's what we did. That was just something we did. So it became really integral into our culture, and it was influenced by the groups that we were listening to. Because when I would rap back in the day in the 80s, I'm listening to Houdini, and I'm listening to Run DMC. I'm trying to bust like Run and DMC. I am. I'm trying to rap like John Lill and Ecstasy from Houdini, because these were dudes that I really admired in what they could do and what they could say. You get a little older, you get into the Slick Ricks and stuff. This is all East Coast stuff coming west that you are really gravitating to, that everybody is liking, and you want to do what these people that you are idolizing do. So I'm breakdancing. I got my parachute pants, I got my Stan Smiths, I got my Pumas with the fat laces, with the red fat laces in them.
Mm-hmm.
And we out there doing this stuff, really trying to do this stuff and learn how to do it. And it was fun and innovative. And it was good to see people from different age groups together doing this kind of thing. That's always what I gravitate to. If it's something that can cross age ranges and actually social groups, it's more fun to me, because the best rapper that we knew in our area was Pierre. And Pierre was like maybe 13, 15. But he's sitting here with these elementary kids in their teens and preteens that are all rapping and can spit. Some of us actually turned that into actually rapping careers when we got older into the 90s. Some of us did. But it was integral. It was a part of your life. It was a part of your life, like going to school was a part of your life. It was something that you did. So you would go to school, you'd rap on the bus to school, you rap walking to school, you'll be in class and do your work, you hit recess, you go outside and rap and stuff like that, do a couple little rap battles, go back into class, and then you go home, and then you either hang out at the boys club, wrestling and hurting each other, but then, back to rapping on the bus and going home. And then when you're home, you're sitting there listening to music, more rap and stuff like that, and learning how to write your own rhymes or bust from the head. It was just something that you did.
I got you. Where do you see hip hop taking its turn?
Forget 40 Yo's, eat Cool J cookies. I'm bad. Yes, Aquateki, that was it. LL bust that shit out, dude. What was your question again, IBMOR? I'm sorry, I'm looking at Aquateki give me feel.
Don't make me pull a Kara Sanders. Don't look at the chat. Just look. Pay attention.
Don't make me start spitting.
But when did you?
Yes, the Fat Boys was raw.
Yeah.
Love the Fat Boys.
Rest in peace to all of them.
Yeah, rest in peace to the Fat Boys. One of them ain't dead, so they ain't all dead. Don't put him in the grave yet, okay?
No, I thought they said they all died.
No, Cool Rock-Ski's still alive. Okay.
Oh, okay. All right. I thought I know two are dead at least.
Yeah, when Prince Marky D died, everybody thought he was the other one. Cool Rock-Ski was dead too, and then they found his ass. Like, no, I'm still alive. I'm not dead.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah, I remember LL needing love too, Sick Dicky. He always needed love. That was one of the best Summer Jam shows, boy, because he had chicks out there creaming like, oh,
yeah,
oh, your loving sire. Yeah. Go ahead, Art. Sorry.
When did you see hip hop taking a turn that where you did not like it? As an old school hip hop head.
1988 to 89 with the introduction of NWA. Now here's the funny thing, because at this time I've been partially known as a rapper in my school, right? And this is going from elementary school to middle school for me. Mm-hmm. Now at this time I've been rapping and I'm pretty known. And all my homeboys are going to junior high school, and we're supposed to all go to junior high school together, and we're going to be spitting, flowing, and hanging out, right? My mother threw a monkey wrench in that whole plan and put me into Catholic school. So while I'm in Catholic school, NWA really comes out, and I'm seeing, how you doing? We're open. NWA really comes out, and I see the shift from all of these kids who are really just looking at rap as something fun and something you could say around your parents and all the rest of this stuff, even with Too Short being out there, and turned into something where everybody wanted to wear Raiders hats and black derbies and black jeans, and everything went from fun and kind of goofy looking with colorful parachute pants and Pumas and colorful fat laces and stuff like that to you got to have black on and you got to be tough. And I saw that shift, and I think it was more of a stark shift because I was in private school at the time and not in public school at the time, because I bounced back and forth over the years, to seeing how people embraced that and how much it was like the taboo thing to actually have a little dance at the school, and the DJ got to put on like iced tea. You could hear some 6 in the morning. You could hear some of that. You could hear some boys in the hood for a hot minute before the chaperones wanted you to turn it off. It was really like a real underground thing. And being one of the few black kids in a private school, everybody's looking at you like, you know them? Yeah, I know Easy. You know Easy? Like, you know Easy? But they would have believed it, right? Because it's like you are now their vehicle into all this world that they don't know about. Right. So there was a real stark shift, and I noticed it the most at that time because junior high school, I've been going to people's houses and having parties and stuff like that, and the whole vibe of the party freaking changed. You need to go to the party ready for some drama. You don't go to house parties anymore because that's damn near a death trap. And if you do go, you basically making a statement of how hard you are and how much folks you got with you, because you don't go through there, lightweight. You can get toe up like that, especially in a small city where everybody is actually into some bullshit with each other every once in a while now. It was really a stark shift, and it was really, in some senses, a kind of scary time, that early 90s when rap took that turn. It was, because you can get messed up over nothing. That was when they started putting out life expectancies, and you wasn't expected to make it to
25 or something like that.
21. Young black male. Damn, 25. 25 was a distant memory. 21 was what you was hoping for. And if you couldn't make it 21, then you was trying to live all your life right now in the 15 to 18 category to hope that you lived.
Yeah, because I remember they put that out on air, of all things.
40. So. Yeah. They did. That was one of those news reports, and that had, my mother a little leery of us and really more protective of us, but she still has to go to work. Right. She still got to go to work, so she wants you to protect yourself and bring your ass home and hide in the house.
Yeah, and I think it was some of that, and also the whole kids were getting snatched up a lot in the 80s. Yeah, that made my parents be like, "Nah, you can't leave the yard. You got to stay."
Here's the thing about that kids getting snatched up in the 80s. Okay, there were a couple notable kids snatched in the 80s. Large measure, for me, kids wasn't getting snatched up like that, okay? I'll just tell you now, them people took Adam Walsh's ass way too serious and jumped, completely out the window.
There was a lot of babies being taken into hospitals, too.
There were babies being snatched in the hospital and stuff like that because these women wasn't having kids and whatnot. But I don't think it was like that. As you know from getting older and studying this stuff and media and how they put those ideas out there, it don't take but one story to get people whooped up into a frenzy. All it has to do is happen one time, and you'll hear it every day after that, like it was happening forever. You'll be inundated with it. I don't see it like that. It called a couple of things that came out during that time with the Gen X's was kids getting snatched, babies getting snatched, and razor blades and stuff like that in your Halloween candy. These were all things or all fear implements that were thrown out there into society. And it only took one instance for that to happen. For now, everything changed for everybody. All of a sudden, Halloween went from something we could enjoy and have fun with going out to now we got to be terrified, walk around with a flashlight and have an adult with us because somebody's going to grab us. You have to learn how to to be aware of stranger danger. You gotta, throw your trash away. All this stuff to me was all social programming. Make people more afraid, stay in the house more. Because before that, you didn't have it, and people were pretty much free to move around and be wherever they were, doing whatever they was doing. It was never a concern. But all of a sudden, like overnight, this happened, and we all had to pivot on our heels. Now we need to be afraid of everything. And that's why I say Generation X was that crash dummy in a sense, because they tested all this stuff on us to see if it would work. So we still remember that it didn't used to be like this at all. We never had that shit. Nobody was concerned like that. And it was never a danger. It was nothing we were ever thinking about. Our biggest worry was, oh, don't go to that house because it look all scary. A witch lives in there. You're worrying about this dude is gonna snatch you. The biggest thing we could worry about is like you can't trust all these dudes because they could be pedophiles, could be trying to touch little boys and stuff. That was the biggest thing for us. Other than that, I'm not worried about that shit. Ain't nobody trying to take little black kids. They don't even want your ass. Parents barely want you. Why would somebody else want to take you?
So how did you experience, or at least not just you, but how did you feel like your cohorts felt about your parents, or maybe boomers or silent generation? I know some Gen X were raised by silent, and some Gen X was raised by boomers. How do you feel about them saying that Generation X was Generation Nothing? Because I do remember that slogan that was put out.
Well, Generation X comes from the idea is that those older generations didn't know what the heck we were going to be. Because mind you, we have the advent of home personal computers in our generation. This technology going from punch cards and stuff like that to disks and stuff that you can actually use and be useful and implement it everywhere, to where you go to any department store or any place now, there's a computer hooked up. Before then, it wasn't that. You had a register and everybody had to write out stuff. So they didn't know who we were going to be because we weren't the kids of the boomers and we weren't, the greatest generation. They didn't really know what our group was going to be. I think also because they were trying so much stuff socially with us, like Dr. Spock and how you raise these kids and all the rest of the stuff, they didn't know how we were going to turn out. That X could just very well be the experiment number, because that's exactly what it was. It was the experiment. We don't know what these things are going to be, but we'll see. And that's why it was there. The idea that we were going to be nothing, I say, emboldened Generation X to try things outside of that, because the whole notion of a Generation X was bucking against what was already established. We knew we weren't any of that other stuff. A lot of stuff was new for us, and it wasn't what it was that was old. Whether we knew it was coming from a boomer or a silent generation, yeah, there were, quote unquote big mamas around. Yeah, people had their grandparents raising them, because the generation before us, my mother's generation, was out partying. They was trying to live their life. And from her accounts of how she grew up, having to raise her younger brothers and stuff, that's what my grandmother's generation was doing. They was out partying and doing drugs and doing all that crap. So for me, as an exit, we didn't care who was saying it. We just resented the idea of people trying to tell us that we weren't going to be nothing. And we weren't anything. And so we went out and defined ourselves, because X is an unknown factor. That's all X means, unknown in math. You're an unknown factor. You don't know what you're going to be. So we went out and defined ourselves. That's why you have the X Games. We embrace that shit. Well, we'll throw off all your traditions and be ourselves. We'll be whatever the fuck we want to be. And as you grew, you took on that attitude that nobody can tell me who I am. I will define who I am for myself. It's not defined by you. You don't have to like it. You know what? You'll be dead in a while, so it won't even matter what you like. It matters what I like at this moment. Hold on one second. I have to discuss it. Hey.
No, you're good.
So go ahead. You can ask the next question. I can multitask.
Okay. What do you think was the main theme of Generation X? That the one thing they try to get across to everybody.
I would say we are more than our labels. That, like I was just saying, you cannot define us. We will define us. We will define ourselves, and not stuffing us into a box that's pre-planned and saying, well, you're not this, so you're nothing. No, we'll be what we are based on what we decide, because it's our life to live. It's our decision to make. It's our choice to have. I mean, that spirit outside of, you've heard it echoed in Angry Man to an extent. We didn't really have too much anyway. He wasn't leaving us really anything to have and be, all happy for. So we're having to do all this stuff ourselves anyway. And if I got to do it myself, you're not going to tell me anything, really. You're going to have to get out my way and let me do what I'm going to do. It's like that old Apple commercial where the runner runs in and throws the hammer at the screen and breaks the screen. We breaking the doxy here. We're not locked in there. We're going to do stuff our way. You may not like it, but you can't do anything about it either. 17.
Do you have any Venom?
It should be on the wall under E at the very bottom.
Oh, I think.
You didn't see it? Okay. 1 sec, Art.
No, you good.
Chip goes right there. So next question.
All right. How
It's on right there.
How was the advancement of technology? How did you feel about that?
I actually enjoyed. You're welcome. Since elementary school, about the 4th grade, 5th grade, I was dealing with computers, and this is where my nerd side got kicked in, because I really got into tech stuff. And at the time we were dealing with computers, we'd have like an hour a day where we had computer class, and we would go to another classroom and get to work on these little pet computers, right? And the pet computers, we took like a audio tape, which was at that time some newer technology, but the programs were on an audio cassette tape, and you pop that in and it would run the computer, and you would learn how to use this computer and programming systems and learn logo and stuff like that to use this stuff. I really got into that. I thought it was really cool. It was really fascinating to me to use that. As I got up in school after elementary and in junior high school, we're using better computers. Now we're using floppies and stuff. Well, that was cool. And you saw this with the 80s movies where all these kids are using computers and got floppy disk and war games and all this other kind of stuff that people were doing with computers. And it really captured my imagination. It was another way of being creative. If you understood this language, you could be creative within it.
Right.
By the time I got up to high school, I am learning programming. I am in a computer class that is 3 hours of just programming computers and using Linux and learning DOS and C++ when all the stuff was new. I'm learning this language and stuff like that now. This was what I thought my career after high school was going to be. I'm going to be a programmer. I'm doing this. I love doing this because to me, it seemed like a way to actually be creative and be accepted for your gifts and your intelligence, as opposed to, well, that's just a little black kid. He ain't going to do too much. Give him that basketball. Let him go dribble that shit. I resented that shit. I really did. Even though I love sports, I resented the fact that somebody wanted to give me a predetermined hole to jump into just because I was just black. Well,
Yeah.
My standards weren't too high. You'll just be doing this. No, motherfucker. What if I want to do all the rest of this stuff that's really interesting me? Maybe I want to travel the world. Maybe I want to do that because I did. But I saw the computer as a way to have that creativity to be outside of that box that everybody wanted to drop you in. Like, you know, your dad ain't shit, so you ain't gonna be shit. You black, so you ain't gonna be shit for this. There were so many signposts up that the computer was the only way that you saw to be more than yourself. All the rest of that shit did not matter. What matters is, do you understand this program? Do you understand how to utilize this tool, this program? Can you write these programs that other people can use and be helpful for? Can you fix it? Can you clean it up? I could do that stuff. So that was valuable. And I felt a sense of, I wouldn't even just say value, but I felt a sense of pride in being able to do this.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's 5 for 6, right?
It is 5 for 6.
Yeah. I think
I did overcharge you.
just one more. Yeah. One.
One second.
Or I can.
No, you got.
You can grab another one if you want.
Okay.
Sorry about that. So you're talking to y'all and I messed up on the customs. Charged her too much. Go ahead.
All right. Let's see. Let's talk about something that me and you will probably enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
The geekdom and the cartoons of the 80s. Because they always say the 80s was the best decade of cartoons ever.
Mm-hmm.
So, as a fellow geek, how do you feel about that trope? You think it's true, or do you think it's false?
I can remember watching cartoons before the 80s, before, say, 84, before the advent of G.I. Joe and Thundercats and Transformers and stuff, which was the best year for cartoons, mind you. But I can remember watching cartoons before that. Spider-Man in the 70s was all right. It was kind of dark. Hanna-Barbera cartoons were cool. I didn't mind that shit too much. I mean, Johnny Quest was a little slow for me at that time, but you know, I could watch the Herculoids and the rest of that stuff. You know, Yogi Bear and that shit. Snagglepuss. It was fun, but I would say in the 80s, the advent of the 80s cartoons with marketing money behind those cartoons, it hit completely different than the rest of those cartoons. The rest of those cartoons were just, you know, fun-loving, inconsequential fucking stories or whatever. You know, okay, that was cool. Yeah, Yogi Bear wanted a picnic basket. Awesome. Yogi Bear's funny. I like it. But you see G.I. Joe on the screen and they fighting Cobra. And then when they go to a commercial break, there's a new G.I. Joe toys at the store. You're like, oh my God, there's toys?
Right.
I can have this? I mean, for me, that was like gold. Now, being a kind of poor kid with a single mother in that time ain't so much fun because she's not buying all of that stuff. She's not. Her money is tight. You know, she's trying to, you know, provide for 2 kids. So I did what any other kid would do. I stole them. So, visit my local department stores and give a little 5-finger discount to get those toys that I actually wanted or trade my boys. But it was to, in effect, act out the cartoon that we were seeing with the toys, to have a piece of that cartoon. That's what made those cartoons hit so much harder, because they had a marketing machine behind them. And because they had a marketing machine behind them and they want you to buy these toys, the stories that went into these cartoons was a bit more sophisticated. You had older people writing this stuff to try to give you a more sophisticated story to make you want to buy these fucking toys. And it worked. I mean, Transformers coming was like one of the hugest freaking things. I mean, look, Transformers and G.I. Joe. I remember when G.I. Joe wasn't there, and I remember when it first started coming on the air and what happened afterwards. All my friends got into that stuff. And the kid, Nassar, I think he might have been Persian or Iranian, now that I think about it. Nassar had a bunch of these toys. And if you're still out there, Nassar, yeah, I gave you a shitty trade. Get Snake Eyes and Cobra Commander. I did give you a shitty trade because you didn't know any better. But whatever. I did some dirt in my youth. But those cartoons were big. those cartoons became part of the tapestry of what it meant to be a kid in the 80s, to have these cartoons, this music, this technology. So sorry about that, man. Yeah. And have all this stuff there for you. And it's like, it's just a wondrous time. It was fun. And no, it's not the 50s, but what is the 50s after you've passed it? You know?
Right. Nah.
Little Splain saying Walgreens used to get hit. No, Splain, you from the same area I am. Montgomery Wards, my nigga. Montgomery Wards and Toys R Us got hit.
Yeah,
I had my whole plan. I'm serious. Look. They got. I think they invented loss prevention in the 80s because they had to. We was in there getting.
Thieving motherfuckers, boy. Thieving motherfuckers.
Look, broke people steal. Look, like Batman said, he lost the allure of what it means to be a criminal when he had to feed himself. Once you have to steal for your survival, you understand that stealing is just one of these things that people do if they are actually struggling. Now, when Winona Ryder's stealing, she wasn't fucking struggling. You know, but you also understand that some rich people do shit for kicks because they want to live like the poor people do. They do it for kicks because they figure they can get away with it. Look, if you're a broke kid from the hood and you want to fit in with the rest of the kids that got this stuff and who got two parents at home and they can buy them the Sky Strikers and all the vehicles and all the rest of this shit, you want to be like these other kids. Because in the 80s, it ain't cool to be an outlier, motherfucker. They wasn't building whole cultures around that shit. It's not cool to be an outlier. So if you're the kid that don't have this shit, you do stick out. So as a broke kid in the hood, you're going to have to try to fit in some kind of way. And if it means you're going to have to go to the store and go to the place where they got all this stuff and figure out a way to get it out of there without getting caught, then that's what the hell you're going to do. That's just what it do. So I don't like these, but at the same time, I understand that there's something more going on than just, I just want to take this because it's there. No, it's probably some desire. And that was my thing. I wanted to have what these other kids had, and I couldn't. I didn't know why. I just didn't. But I knew I didn't want to be on the outs. So I figured out a way to make sure I was on the ends. That meant going in someplace and taking a shit. They got a bunch of them. They get another shipment.
This guy.
Look. This was a kid's mind state at that time. I'm older, so I'm rationalizing. As a kid, look, I just wanted this toy. Zartan looked really fucking cool in the cartoon. And here it is. This big ass box. And I only want this little ass figure. I don't need the skiff. But you know what? Let me rip this package open and stick this shit down my shorts because since it's the stranger danger in the pedophile generation, ain't no man about to reach in my underwear and grab my little peepee to get this toy out of it. I'm stuffing it in my shorts and I'm leaving. I'm not advocating. I'm just telling y'all what happened at the time. I was a kid. Okay. And if anybody come out to the store calling after me, we run it. And they ain't gonna catch us because we young and fast. So, we out of here. That's just what it was.
So what about the video games? Because you are the generation that grew up on video games.
Oh shit. Oh my God. Video games was huge for me. This goes into the whole technology thing too. My first video game at home was the Atari 2600 that my mother got us for Christmas. And I think she spent about $150 on this shit. Now, this is one of the things my mother did. She couldn't buy us all this shit, okay? She couldn't buy us all this stuff. But there was a couple of things that happened. Christmas or whatever, Christmas we would get the big shit. We got Atari 2600 in early 80 something when it came out. That shit was brand new when we got it. It just came out when we got it. Because she tried to keep us a little bit on ahead of the wave with that technology stuff. She tried to do it as best she could, which providing the house and cars and clothes and all the rest of that shit. She tried to do it because she wasn't getting child support. This wasn't the age of everybody taking a nigga to court because she got 2 pumps and a squirt. Okay. You talk shit, but if you didn't get it, you didn't get it. You moved on with your life. So that 2600 coming into the house came with a Skydiver, Street Racer, and Pitfall. And I love the hell out of that shit. Except for that fucking ET game. Fuck that. But Pitfall and the rest of that stuff, that was huge. I was playing that stuff forever. Because before that, it was the Pong game.
Yeah.
It ain't nothing but, one dot and, two sliders. Like, it's supposed to be tennis, but you got to use your imagination. That 2600, though, that was color. That was actual graphics. It was still blocky, but it was graphics. Donkey Kong? Holy shit. This is awesome. That really had an influence on me to where I'm loving to play this. I'm loving to interact with technology in this way that it can be fun and entertaining. It only got worse, in a sense, when it got up to the NES, and she got that for us one Christmas after we had went down to Watts to visit our cousins, and my cousins had a Nintendo Entertainment System. They had an NES. And we was in that crowded ass room playing track and field and shit and sweating and stinking up the bedroom. After we came back from that, Mama figured she needed to get one for us because we loved it so much. And sure enough, that Christmas, that NES was there and I was done. You couldn't pull me off of that motherfucker. We had Legend of Zelda too. Oh no, niggas. Legend of Zelda? Oh man, I was on that shit. That was the first game map I memorized, because I was playing that shit religiously. Super Mario Brothers, I was playing that shit religiously. That was the first game that I was having dreams about in my dreams on how to beat that shit. Figuring out, like, oh, you just jump over Bowser this way, and that's how you can get past him. And sure enough, I played that shit in the game, and it worked. I was like, oh, shit. That was the first game. Castlevania, yep, Castlevania 2. That was huge. That was the impact on us to where we still went outside and played a bit in Gen X between the game and your friends, because your friends are probably outside, and the kids that don't have that shit either came over to your house and hung out with you, because everybody didn't have it. It wasn't like, you can go now and people got, I got an Xbox and a PlayStation. I don't play neither one of them. I'm on my Switch. It wasn't that shit. You either had one or the other, and it wasn't a bunch of kids in the neighborhood who had it. So the one kid who did have it was the most popular kid in the neighborhood, because everybody else wanted to be friends with him. So you can go over his house and hang out there and play that shit with him. It was like a secret because you weren't supposed to tell anybody, get your house broken into. Right? So you would have this communal thing where people were coming over and hanging out at your house to play your Nintendo or to play your Atari, because they didn't have one.
Yeah.
When the price came down and more people could get it, then it was like, well, now everybody's locked in their houses. They just at their house playing.
That's how it was too.
Yeah, your generation really got that bad. That's when I really started seeing that it was making kids not go outside, because they pumped so much fear to that point that kids weren't supposed to be going outside. And so now you guys are just in the house. And what are you doing just in the house? You're just playing games, because ain't nobody trying to make y'all read shit.
Well, my parents had to worry that with me because I was reading comic books all the time.
Uh-huh. Comics are better. Comics are cooler in your generation. Because you came out, what, 80, 86 when you were born?
No, 82.
82? Yeah. So comics are getting better at that point. You right before a bus, but it is what it is. You came into this shit where you came into it. You don't control that part.
I think I was reading comics since 85, 86.
Nice. You might have got some of them good stories.
Told you I still got my Secret Wars where it has Spider-Man got that black suit.
Good.
Still in plastic.
Yeah. I'm not joking. We having a serious conversation. So go ahead. Next question. I do remember the Tiger handheld game World Life, because that was a big deal with the football and stuff like that.
Double Dragon
Tiger games were good, but Tiger was basically an offshoot of let's say it's an ancillary gift to not having a system in your house. If you got a system in your house, your parents could get you a Tiger game and you'd be okay. How you doing, sir? All right. If you hear me talking, I'm just on the live stream, so don't worry about it. So if you hear me talking, I'm just on the live stream, so don't worry about it. If you need any help, just let me know. So yeah, the Tiger was a stopgap. It was like, oh, well, we didn't get you the Nintendo, but we got you this Tiger game, so it kind of looks like football. Yeah, Tiger games were big, but that was big for everybody who couldn't have a system in their house. I had a system in my house. I didn't give a damn about the Tiger game, so I didn't care. Like, I'm going home and get on my Nintendo. I'm like, whatever. I'm about to play Super Mario Brothers while you looking at the pixelated football players. Whatever.
Let's see. I've already said that one. I think that's pretty much it. Was there anything that you needed to say about Gen X before we end? Well, not end it, but because I'm only gonna do an hour since I woke up late and I want to have a little bit of time, free time before I start my late live stream. So,
You had your free time while you were sleeping. Oh boy.
Listen.
Have a good one.
But is there anything else you want to say about Gen X that people may not know before I open this up for everybody to come on for like an hour?
Yeah. Anything else about Gen X that they don't know? I would think that a lot of this social stuff that you see now that you don't like, whenever you watch Kevin or something like that, and you see some of these women out here, and they up in their 40s and stuff like that, they late 40s or 50s, and you listen to some of this dysfunctional shit that come out of their mouth, these are your Xers. And I wouldn't say have pity on them, but understand they had no real defense for this shit that was coming in with us. We were the crash test dummies for a lot of this shit that you millennials, you Zs, and maybe later on you alphas will see. The millennials were the one who had to really pick it up. The Zs are the ones who just born into it. Look, you won't know anything different. You won't. So a lot of the independence of Xers goes in a way that we didn't care about a lot of this other shit that was going on. And by the time we did start caring about it, we were almost too late to actually do anything about it. Now, I won't blame Xers for all these boomers raising kids, because that falls on the generation before us, or these silent generations raising us. That was because our parents were the ones that were out there just trying to really go at their own first, right? So when you have these generational conversations about how this shift in society goes, understand that Gen Xers were the first one to get shafted with all this shit. And some of us resisted it. But a lot of us have that angst that you hear in our voice, that anger that you hear in our voice when you talk to us about some of this shit and having to do it ourselves, is because we did. We had to do a lot of this shit ourselves. We had to define ourselves because nobody was doing shit for us. Everybody left us with a bowl of shit to eat and just sat back and watched to see what we did with it. Did we smear it on our face, or did we throw it against the wall? The ones who threw it against the wall are the people that you see who are successful today and will keep doing stuff despite who like it or who don't, because liking it was never a prerequisite in our life. Nobody liked what the fuck we were doing. They didn't even like us. So we exist without that acknowledgement or that validation, even though on a human level, we still need that shit. So when you come in at Xers about some of this shit, you need to try to understand a little bit where they're coming from and talk to them and get their mindset. Ask them questions instead of throwing accusations. Same thing with boomers and stuff. You know, this whole society got tipped on its head back in 60s, 70s, or whatever, and 80s so much with the bracket, especially with black folks. We have to understand that context, and not just from a book or Wikipedia or something you've read, but from people who lived through it. So you understand it through their eyes and what they saw, as opposed to you trying to tell them what it was. Nobody's going to appreciate that shit whatsoever. But that's it. Generation X is the best generation.
This guy. Well, there's one last thing I want to ask.
Yeah, you got the X Games because of us, motherfucker, and hip hop. So shut up. I enjoy that shit.
There's one thing I need to ask. Female male relationships, expectations of marriage, and hereafter.
In the past or in the present?
that'd be the last thing we'll talk about. Then we'll open it up. What was your expectations when it comes to relationships with women? Being someone who was married and now divorced. Um, you know, what was your expectations, and what did you figure out that okay, this is not going to be like my mom and dad or whatever idea you had in your head, and what did you learn from that experience?
I was a sensitive kid, and I would say that for me, as a sensitive, artsy kid, when I was younger, little blue pillar, I just wanted to be in love. I really did. I just wanted to be in love with some chick. I always wanted chicks, and I say even way back to kindergarten that I can remember, I wanted girlfriends. I always wanted girlfriends to be kissing on girls and all that shit. That was who I was. So my expectation of life was largely based, in some senses, on what I was seeing on television, not what was reflected in my real life. Because in real life, it was not the ideal. It was kind of fucked up. Okay. So seeing interpersonal relationships in that sense was not something that I wanted to actually mimic, put it that way. It was something I really wanted to go away from. And that was just from talking to people and growing up. That was just par for the course for Gen Xers dealing with people in the house. Family was always broken from the time I showed up and recognized it was a family. It was already broken. It was broken when I got here. So it was just my mother and my brother and me, except for when we had my brother's dad there, who wasn't, like I already told y'all, was not on the up and up dude. He was not an up and up dude. So my expectation was that the girl that I liked, I really went out there to do and had my heart in my hand and just handing it to her and like, ooh, I like you, love me. And the shit you got back in return was some really venomous, fucked up shit, which is standard nowadays, but was really some embarrassing shit for me at the time that it was happening because I was a young kid. This is not what I learned from girls. I didn't know it was going to be like that. But what I can also say is that I wasn't taught what it was going to be like either. My mother wasn't trying to teach me any of this stuff because she was a young parent. So at the time that I was 5, my mother was only 20.
Mm-hmm.
She wasn't grown yet. So she wasn't trying to teach me about sex or girls or any of that shit because she's still trying to figure her fucking self out or figure out how to feed us and have a career doing this shit. So a lot of what I learned from relationships and stuff, I learned by fucking up and bumping my damn head, which I've told my kids many a time. I've bloodied my head on many a wall, but use that blood to figure out the workaround. Follow the trail to know how to get around that wall so you don't do it. So my expectation was to have a girlfriend, eventually be married, and to, have some kids and be happy because I wanted that complete family life that I at least saw my cousins have. I wanted that father and mother and the kids there and having the house and the fucking fireplace and being able to read and kick the dog and do, that normal shit.
Yeah.
I wanted some kind of that normal idyllic life. And life has not showed me that normal idyllic. I had a small sliver of it while I was married because in that sense, I got to create it. I got to make it. And I had somebody who had just as dysfunctional a background as me, so she wanted it just as much as I did. But dysfunction doesn't go away. It lives in you. You have to get help for that shit. You have to get help to re-engineer yourself and extract that shit from you. And even if you learn how to combat it, it's going to be there. But you got to deal with it. You got to learn how to slay that demon or chain that bitch up in the corner. You got to learn how to do that stuff. So as I got older, I finally got to the point where I could be married, did get married, and it went the way that relationships go because there were still some parts that have not been worked out because you had nobody to model it for you, nobody to teach you how to get through these humps because they have never done it themselves. So they can't teach you shit. That's why Gen Xers are always coming from the standpoint that you need to be respectful talking to me because I've had to go through a lot to learn the knowledge that I've learned. And I've had to go through a lot of fucking pain and strife to get to this point. So you're not going to take that from me by just blowing it off.
Right.
We have to teach ourselves this shit. We're raising ourselves. We're learning this ourselves. So that's why I don't really balk at a bunch of Gen Xers having dysfunctional relationships. Well, who taught you? Nobody. So look, it's not amazing to have a kid do something wrong if nobody has ever taught him how to do it right. It's not surprising. It's not a surprise. It's actually expected. If you come out the other side and don't fuck it up, that's impressive. But other than that, it was a huge change. And I'd say the birth of my son and going through that process with his mother, who was also a Gen Xer, and learning how the mask is ripped off the face of who women really are and how they can game and use the system to fuck you over and have you in a position that you are supposed to be their footstool and the mule to get them to whatever other place they're going, at the same time giving you no respect for it. Yeah, we're the generation that had to suffer that. So if you millennials get the picture to not be in that situation, I'm sure you were looking at some Xer getting fucking raped in this system.
Pretty much.
That ain't gonna be me. I ain't gonna let that happen to me. He looked fucked up. Yeah, you fucked up for a reason.
Or even some boomers. 'Cause I know some boomers got fucked over in that system too.
Yeah, I think some boomers did because they were the early brunt of that shit. But Xers really got it. Like my mother and my father would be considered a boomer generation, right? Because they're in their 60s, upper 60s now, around BGS's age, right? They would be considered boomers in that generation. But I cannot say as boomers, they were the one raising all the goddamn kids. They weren't. It was the grandparents, their mothers and fathers raising the kids. The silent generation was raising the kids. So that's why the Xers are so tied to their grandparents so much, because their parents, the boomer ones, were out partying, living their life.
Yeah.
So we had to figure it out for ourselves. Our grandparents could give us so much. Those of us who had grandparents who stepped in and took us. Other than that, we were just left at the will of these boomers who didn't really want us. They were just trying to fulfill their responsibilities. So they did their responsibility part, but that other part of actually loving, caring, and giving a fuck about you some time of the day was like, look, I fed you, I care. You know, checking out, figure it out for the rest of the shit on your own. Because they were wanting to do their own thing. So that's why I say it's context and understanding where that waves come in. And by the time Gen Xers got old enough to start having kids, we really wanted families because we were coming from this broken situation. And then that's when you see us start really getting fucking raped with this shit of women really going out and learning that, oh, I can get paid and have this, this, and this if I have this baby by this dude. These are Gen X women learning this. That's why Gen X is the generation that has it the most. And it's perpetuated into the millennial generation because those kids from Gen Xers are what? Millennials or Zs.
Yep.
And that's why you see those millennials like, we don't want no parts of that shit. We seen how that was rolling. Because you were raised by these Gen X parents using this shit to the hilt. That picked it up from the boomer generation who was using it. They just got ratcheted up on us. Thank you, Bill Clinton, you bitch. To really subsidize everybody with this shit, broke or not. Because I've gone through, I can't even tell you how many times my license has been suspended behind some child support shit, even though I pay these motherfuckers. And still paying them to this day. And my son is going to be 28. His mama still having babies. Just keep working the system. Yeah. This will keep you beating your dick.
Right. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna open it up just for an hour. Anybody's welcome to come on and talk about this subject. Thank you, Artisan, for coming on as always.
Well, I came up. I didn't come on. You came on. I came up.
Well, shut up.
I came in. So I learned in private school. You gotta turn everything into a sexual joke.
I see.
Hey, look, I had a dare one time. I was always good for that. You couldn't dare me to do shit, but I would do it.
I still gotta. I'm gonna check to see if your care package came. Tomorrow, because I know the office is closed right now. So,
yeah, that motherfucker Wolf is in here. What's up, Namo?
what's up,
Hey, Artisan. What's good? Yo,
Good.
let me see if I understand this right, Artisan. Your son is 28
Yes.
and his mother's still birthing.
His mother,
Is a brooding female, obviously.
put it this way, her two kids were grown. And right when her two kids got really grown, and my son was getting ready to have his first child,
Mm-hmm.
his mother popped out another one at 40-something years old. By not her
God.
man. By not her man, somebody else's man. So at the same time, she should be taking care of her first grandchild. She's taking care of her new son.
Oh my God.
Not the same age. That's fucking crazy to me. There's no way I'm going back like that. I'm not going backwards like that. No way. But
I don't blame you, man.
it's what
But
worked
yeah,
for her. Her nest was empty.
Yeah. I hope you your relationship with your son, I'm sure, is probably very rewarding. I'm sure you put enough sense into him.
Yeah. I was talking to my son or texting him today because I saw his Instagram post, and he has his family now. You know, he has his family and his girlfriend, her son. His father is the son's father is dead. And then he has a daughter, right? So my son works his ass off like I do, right? And he took them as a surprise to a Maroon 5 concert. Well, I thought that was really, really awesome of him. You know, my son, for all intents and purposes, being an awesome dad, from what I see, and not just from what I see, from what I talk to his girlfriend about how he's doing. Not because she's the authority on manhood, no, but being that you've been raising a kid by yourself, and this man is in your life raising his child and raising your child at the same time, how do you think he's doing? Just to get a feel, not because I'm taking it without a 2-pound grain of salt. Just what do you think? How's he doing? And I'm really impressed and appreciative of the man my son is. I am.
Hey, he learned from the best, man. He learned from you.
Hey, he learned from a couple people, but I'm pretty humble dude that I wouldn't want to take all that on. Like, hey, you learn from the best, because I know the mistakes I've made. But in spite of this, he's an awesome dude. He's an awesome dude. Like I said, if he wasn't my kid, I'd want to be his friend, because he's a cool dude. So I'm really impressed. I had to tell him how proud I was of him today to do something like that, to have the forethought and the caring to do something. Yeah, I'm just going to surprise him, because that was some shit that I would do for them. I would just surprise them with some shit. Like, yeah, where are we going? Just get in the car, man. We're just going for a ride.
Yeah.
Maroon 5, huh?
Like,
the kids are Maroon 5 fans?
Yeah, okay. Let's party.
All right. Yeah. I bet the kids had moves like Jagger, just to use a Maroon 5 song reference.
But Maroon 5 is one of those groups that he discovered through me, because that's what I was listening to. And I never really put blocks on my kids' ears about this is black music and this is white music. I played music. Yeah. I don't give a fuck who made it. I played music in the house.
What kind of music did you listen to growing up in the 80s, besides hip hop? What did you listen to in the 80s?
Probably some Aerosmith.
Rock.
All right.
Rock and rap was predominantly what it was. I heard some country because of my foster mother and stuff. So there's some Willie Nelson songs that I heard and listened to and stuff like that. Dolly Parton, Kenny Loggins, Kenny Rogers.
No shame in that. No shame in that, because I listened to a lot of that growing up, man. So it's cool.
I'm an 80s kid, so look,
you listen to Sheryl Crow, man. That's Sheryl Crow.
Sheryl Crow.
I listen to Sheryl Crow.
Yeah, Sheryl Crow's dope.
I did listen to Alanis Morissette. But
Hey, no shame. I listened to Alanis myself. I've listened to a lot of stuff. You know, I remember there were like English groups I used to listen to. One was Tears for Fears.
Yep.
You ever listen to them? Yep. Everybody Wants to Rule the World. That's always a song that's in my heart. That's always got a special place to me.
Well, you want to rule the world?
No. But I remember but if you might remember, it's Nas on his album Stillmatic, he took that beat and he put his own version of that.
If I rule the world.
No, not If I Know. If I Rule the World was from It Was Written. That's 96. In 2002, remember he had the song called Stillmatic? It's the one with Ether. The song Ether, the diss track. There was a song where there's a song where he uses like a sample of Everybody Wants to Rule the World. And the girl sings a hook by finishing it by saying Everybody wants to rule the world.
Okay. Cool.
You know?
Awesome.
So that I remember. Who else was also?
How you doing, sir?
There was like oh, hey Bruce. Sorry, I forgot about that.
No, he has customers.
Yeah,
Oh,
he in the shop
my
right
bad.
now.
He's in the shop.
Oh, Reverend. Oh, my bad.
But what's up, Bruce?
Yeah,
Not much, man. Y'all got
Artisan, you ain't shit. God bless you for it.
y'all got more in it, man. Like for real, like because like I said, technically I'm a millennial, established, born '85, but a lot of the training and stuff like that, a lot of the shit that X's had to go through by proxy, especially having an elder brother, year 79, I had to, kind of sample that as well. And that's why I was trying to explain to BGS about kind of being an in-between. I don't mean like literally in-between generation, but like I was on the cusp of all that shit, man. And the way artists describe his childhood, that was like 2.0. I was the 2.0 version of that. You know what I mean? Like as far as the comic books, the video games, things like that. Older brother was putting me on the game on a lot of shit, and I had no idea what was coming. And I'm glad he was trying to get me ready for it, because damn.
Well, that's why I call.
Yeah,
No,
go ahead.
no, that's it. That's why I call artists in the beginning. Like, what's up, big brother? Because my brother's a Gen Xer. He was born in '75, so all the stuff that he was into, as far as comic books, Star Wars, all the other stuff, geek stuff, because he was into that stuff. I got into it because of him. I got into rock music because of him.
The prototype for a lot of this stuff.
Yeah,
of actually being comfortable liking this stuff.
A lot of younger brothers usually like to emulate their older brothers, don't they?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's probably why IBMOR got an affinity for Gen Xers, because I mean, they was the first ones to put us on a, the unique game. Like, yeah, the boomers is whatever, because I had boomer parents and uncles and whatnot. But then when it came to okay, shit getting more modernized and recent and all that other stuff, and them not understanding where we're coming from, that's when the X's kind of came in and filled that void a little bit. It would try to translate to the best of their ability to let us know, well, this is what's going on, this is what happened then, this is what's happening now, and this is probably most likely going to happen in the future.
I have more of an affinity for boomers, to be honest with you.
Yeah, but that was the role that the X's feel. We had, in some ways, some of these people who didn't know some of this stuff, like the technology and stuff, we were the ones that ended up having to teach the older people this stuff. That's why computers was like that great leveling field where a younger person would be in a room teaching a bunch of older people how to use this technology, because they didn't get it.
Take my parents, for example. Like my mom, I'd have to be teaching and telling her stuff like, well, why you get this refurbished computer from Walmart if they didn't have your sound corrected? That's X, Y, and Z, Granted, she would have to teach me about other stuff like, well, rent, with apartment this, and your apartment shouldn't be having this issue, and you breaking leak, all this other shit, right? But then when it comes to computers and stuff, I got to pass that on to her. As in my post, my father, he always stayed ahead of the game technology wise, so we always been on that equal playing field. So it was a unique relationship. That's what I mean. I don't discredit boomers at all, or not, trust me, but I just know some fall short, but some was just like the nail on the head. But both my boomer parents tell me all the time, despite me, you did this, you was able to do this and push through this. Like I said, my boomer parent, I was still elementary school student, what I'm saying? Technically, I was supposed to be slow, speech class, learning disability, but y'all trusted me with the responsibility of my infant little sister to come home from elementary school. She crying on the kitchen floor in the baby seat, and the phone ringing off the hinges, and I got to answer the phone after a certain, ring pattern, just for them to give me further instruction to look after her until they get back.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that was
I can relate to that.
Yeah, that was me with my younger brother. And from talking to my mother, that was her generation, and she's a boomer. So that was the silent generation, my grandmother's generation, who were leaving the children first with the kids and they have to watch and take care of the kids. Because my mother had to do it all. She had to cook, do the chores, do the cook, be the disciplinarian of her younger brothers, and get them kids fed while mom is going to work and then mom partying. So
Walking the kids to school as well.
By the time it got to me, I didn't have to do the cooking, but I did have to be responsible for my younger brother. And that gave people responsibility of understanding, at least as an Xer who was the oldest child. It ain't about you at all. Nobody gives a damn about you. It's about making sure everybody else is safe. So you were supposed to be, in a sense, a sacrificial lamb. Your job is to safeguard everybody else and fuck your feelings. You don't care.
I saw that with my older brother on my mom's side. And then when my dad took me at like 7 years old to 10 years old to Virginia, because that's where he was stationed at the time. I didn't know he had another kid, my younger sister. And so he was staying with the baby mama, her son, who was a year older than me. And then he wanted me over there, you know, like, well, my son this and my son that. I'm going to show you, you know, her other brother, you know. So I got kind of thrust into that. Then that's when I started kind of relating and understanding where my older brother was coming from more. Because now I have to be the older brother. Now I got to be responsible. Now I got to stop my dad from killing all y'all except me and my sister, because my dad has a sister. A temper. You know, he got a temperament, and if I gotta take the body blows on behalf of y'all because y'all did some fuck shit and y'all don't know my dad like I know my dad, then yeah, that was me. I was the shield. I was always the shield, you know. And looking back, they gotta tell me that. They was like, well, we looked at you as more of a follower than a leader and all the other shit. I was like, well, that was by design, man. My dad was the leader the whole time. I just was trying to, you know, I was the lieutenant. I was just trying to protect all y'all. I knew baby girl no harm was going to, because he spoiled her compared to me. He wasn't going to beat her like he would beat me.
No.
In fact,
DLG. She was a DLG.
What's a DLG name?
Daddy's little girl.
Yeah. So it should be. She would literally get shots off, beat my ass. You know, I couldn't, you know, hit me with blunt objects in the face, and I could not cry in front of my dad. Like that was.
What you crying about? She hit me in the back of the head with a bat.
See, I was in that protector position, but it wasn't my father. It was my brother's dad. So my protector position was when him and my mother would get into it, and he started trying to kick her ass. I have to be the one calling the police and making sure I keep him out of the house and all this shit. And it's like understanding that this is all a role a kid shouldn't have. I can't be dealing with a grown ass man at like 10. What am I gonna do?
I remember. I remember my stepmom. You know, my sister's mother and my dad getting into it physically, and then her son running to go try to grab a butcher knife. I knew what was going on because I heard the sound, so I'm running. I run after him, thinking I'm about to stop him. But then before all that, you know, Dad just popped in like he was Hokage or some shit and just, you know, de-escalated all that shit. They got like, because he heard the sounds too. And he's like, "What the fuck y'all doing?" I'm like, "Well, you know, he ran for the knife because, you know, you wouldn't be getting into it, and I thought I was gonna, you know, save you, but clearly I was out by death." But you know, that's the type of shit you had to go through back then. You know what I'm saying?
As an exit, you just have to deal with this shit.
Yeah,
you have to deal with it.
I'm definitely on my element here.
Yeah, it's not a unusual story. If you talk to Xers and they want to open up with you about their personal lives and what they went through, it's not an alienated story. That was common. When you hear those
on
stories,
your side, but I mean, because you know I'm non-ADOS here, so this is alien to me.
Well, you gotta think I'm a millennial talking about this, bro. You don't hear most millennials talking like this these days.
Yeah,
well, that's what
but I will say this though:
you are 2.0. You seeing that Generation Xer carried over to the next generation, that dysfunction carried over to the next generation, and the actual progression of how worse it got.
And not even understanding what's the root of that dysfunction either, until we get older enough to understand it, because we're like, why was this the way it was? And then we try to figure that out. You're like, oh, so that's why you guys were that explains why it was the way you were. Because I remember when I was 24, 25, my mother had to sit me down because, you know, my father and I didn't always have the best relationship. It's a lot better now. But at that time, you know, because, you know, being East African and all, my mother told me he had a very difficult childhood because, you know, his parents were divorced. and they were silent. They were the silent generation. And he had to be raised by his mother, my grandmother, and my great aunt and her kid and 2 of her sons at the same time. And they had to go to the Catholic boarding school. Before that, my grandmother had sent my father to our ancestral village. 6, 7-year-old boy, born in the city, doesn't know anything about what it's like to be living out in the country. And he had to learn. But we're not talking about like in a country like the States. I'm talking about like a rural village in Africa here, friend.
I don't understand what you're talking about.
Cattling and shit. Yeah, learning cattle, how to handle cattle and shit like that. I'm like, what the hell?
Hell yeah.
That dude, I was like, that motherfucker. No wonder that explains a lot of shit. I'm like, wow.
Unfortunately,
but when I got,
yeah.
But when, like I said, but afterwards, when I got to know him a little better, I sometimes asked Dad, I said, Pops, what was it like when you were coming up in the 70s? And the smile and the look in his eye, or every time I asked my uncles, what was it like in the 70s? And the look in their eyes, it just told me, the joy and the memories and everything they had. But they also remember how rough it was because, especially like from 77 onwards, it was pure hell in Ethiopia and whatnot because they had that Red Terror and everything, communism with the shutdown. Red Terror is no joke. Have you guys ever seen the movie Red Sea Diving Resort? That's that's a sub story of the Red Terror era, of the Red Terror that was going on back in the 80s. But that's involved in most that was Operation Joshua and Moses. But the Red Terror, but what was really going on and shit, like telling me about that, asking some of my uncles who are Gen Xers as well as boomers, what was it like coming up during that reign, or what was it like during the Independence War and whatnot. They just told me what I needed to know when it was the time for me to know. And once they did tell me, I understood. Yes.
That's the boomers playbook through and through because they looking like it's like they was trying to shield and protect us from it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it was certain intel that we needed to know coming up. But I don't fault them for that because looking back, I mean, in hindsight, I get it. I mean, how do you explain the collateral damage and what you should do next moving forward if they had to be the first to go through that playbook? You know what I'm saying? Like that battlefield. I mean.
It's not even enough time passed to use your expression. There's not enough time passed for them to even form an after-action report.
Exactly. So now we got to pick up where they we got to pick up where they left off and then try to build as we fly, so to speak. Yeah. And on one hand they understand it, but sometimes they don't.
Are we talking about boomers or Gen Xers?
Well, I mean, we're talking about the results of what the boomers had to go through, what the Gen Xers and early millennials went through and experienced, you know what I'm saying? Because sometimes it could be easy to overlook because it's like, well, us boomers had it harder than y'all got more technology and things that you're exposed to information these days than we do. But at the same time, we're going to dispute and rebuttal your information if you bring it up or present it. If you don't come correct with it, like absolute, which I get. I definitely get that because, if that was the mistake they made back then, damn sure they ain't gonna try to have you to repeat the process in a new era. So it's that dilemma. It's that catch-22.
I'm just trying to make sure we stay on topic. That's all.
Yeah. No, we're staying on topic and whatnot, but we're just saying we're just like kind of like reconcile a timeline, so to speak, to let you know like how point A to point B and how the Gen Xers became to be and the early millennials versus the newer millennials as we can see the vast difference between, because just like they shielded us from all that shit they was trying to shield us from back then, I think we did that too to the younger generation as well. That's why they're not understanding it and they're not respecting it, and they're like, man, what the fuck y'all doing, man? At least the boomers did this. Y'all wasn't on y'all shit. And it's like,
we had something called the 08 collapse.
I think what is going on with, I think that the Gen Xers, they had a little bit more freedom, probably more so than they should have. Like you had the ability to go home. You can run around, do whatever. You could be out.
It's like, let's try something.
Like when the lights, hold on, man. When the lights came on, that's when you had to come home.
Yeah, street lights.
But then your parents really didn't really care about you going out into the streets and doing whatever as long as you came home. And
because Oh,
Yeah,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say that as Gen Xers, being latchkey kids and stuff like that, you did get a lot of freedom, but that's why Gen Xers got into a lot of stuff really early, because we were basically in the house by ourselves. So we were living a life that we were having responsibilities in some senses like grown people. You got this whole house to yourself, and you get to do what the hell you want to until a certain amount of time, right? When everybody else come home. So you're having a large degree of freedom that I don't think kids had in the 50s and 60s, because at that time there was somebody home, there was some parental influence. But Gen
Yeah.
Xer, there was no parental influence for a long stretch of time. And if your parents
wow.
worked really long hours or late, it was just you. So it was just you, your friends, and your kids, and your next door neighbor had the same situation you did. So y'all could hang out. Now, when the parents came around, like on the weekend, yeah, that's when it was okay. You need to get your ass in here before the street lights come on. But other than that, you was left to your own devices to go out there and just experience the damn world, because they wanted you away from the house so they can experience
what
the
they
peace
wanna do.
without you. Yeah, do what they want to do.
Play
Whether
cards or
and they-
something.
playing
No,
cards,
for
Artisan,
real.
I have a question.
drinking
And the caveat,
alcohol, doing whatever.
Hold on.
You know, that's what it was. You were left out there to just to be to your own devices. That was a good thing, but it also has bad things attached to it, because that's why we got into a lot of stuff. We thought we were grown, so we went out here and had kids early. We went out here trying to set up our own house early, because we already thought we was grown, because we was already doing all the rest of that grown stuff.
Yeah.
Might as well go to the hill, take the rest of it on.
Hey, but I'll tell you like this: when it comes to early boomers, where they used to have sex was in their car. When they came to Gen X,
In the house.
you had that sex in the house.
No, look, my house was a house that my mother was gone, and my mother would go out of town and go on trips. My house was a house that she could come to sometimes and hang out, because she'd be gone. There'd be anybody there.
That was the first. That's why the first generation where you could actually have a girl come over your house and you know you will not be disturbed.
I had
No,
chicks
that
at the
is
crib
true.
often.
That is true. But before anyone else get into caveat what Artisan was saying, man, like, look, I think it's true what he's saying, because, like I said, as an early millennial, even my dad to this day is like, I don't know how you cope and how you're able to be alone as much as you are, because that's why I couldn't imagine that. And I'm like, well, I was programmed and trained to be since childhood. Matter of fact, you know, when you went to go take custody, your biggest talking point was, well, you know, his mother used to leave him alone in his grandma's basement a lot and all the time. So, you know, you kind of had to cope with that. And then when you had extra responsibilities, you damn sure had to kind of hold down the ship until they got back. Like, you know what I'm saying? And I'm grateful for it, honestly. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, extra responsibility, because I wouldn't be dominated at my job I'm at today. You know, or even in the military, like, you know, taking on that extra responsibility before you're ready. Well, you have to do this as a young child anyway with your siblings, and you'd be damned if anything happened to them, because that was like God's fear. Like, if something happened to my little sister before my father gets home, that's going to be my ass, and probably everyone else's in the household's ass as well.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do about it now? You
Worse than your last.
You got to, you know, you got a speech impediment, whatever, what have you. But what are you going to do now to mitigate what's going on now? And we had to live in that, like, look, you know, we had to, you know, react, reflect and all that. And it's like, I mean, you know, it better get food with me, but I always hear my parents always come at me, well, despite what I did, you did, you know what I'm saying? And I'm like, well, I'm grateful for it. The tutelage, but thank you for acknowledging the error in your ways as well. But I'm gonna take responsibility myself, because y'all was trying to have me do that the whole time, and I'll end it there.
I have a question, actually, since we talked about the sex thing.
And what's up,
artist-
Architect?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Anyway.
Okay, cool, great.
Yeah, we can hear you. Okay. Anyway, Artisan, since we were talking about, like, you know, how y'all were getting wild and everything, especially if you had a girl over, coming up in the 80s, was HIV/AIDS ever spoken about in the classroom when you guys were in high school, junior high at least?
All the time.
No, I'm asking Artisan, not you, Aqua. Oh yeah, sorry, Aquatech. I forgot you were a Gen Xer too. Yeah, I forgot about that as well. Sorry.
Yeah, that was the onset of it of really having this whole thing about AIDS awareness and all this stuff, because that's when you start seeing a lot more people dying from this shit. Like my uncle, one of my uncles died from it because he was gay. And
God
he
rest
died
his soul.
from it about the 90s. I think it was about the 90s. But
man.
it was the start of that conversation, of having that conversation out amongst children about that, where they first rolled out the AIDS quilt and they started adding to it and they started getting bigger and shit like that, and the AIDS quilt going on tours around the country. That was all at the start of our generation. That's where, surprisingly enough, Gen Xers were inundated with this safe sex message. And this is post, the freewheeling 70s where everybody was fucking and doing drugs and doing whatever. Now we getting the chastity belt slapped on us like, y'all gotta wrap it up. Y'all gotta stay safe. Like,
Abstinence.
damn, we don't get to have no fun with this like y'all did.
No.
Facts. Still
Yeah, I was like, God damn. It would make you would think that with all that going on, that we wouldn't have kids as much as we did, but we still did, because condoms wasn't always readily available like that. I mean, look, by the time you got to high school, you had to go get that shit from Planned Parenthood or something like that. Or you can go to, what was it, Headlines or whatever it was, where they actually sold condoms out in the open. Like, so you could buy them and nobody would give you shit, but you would be low key
they just give them to
like,
you.
I gotta get these things, so I want to put them on my dick. Like, oh, you trying to get some, huh? Like, oh man.
What they used to call them, raincoats?
Raincoats,
French raincoats, Jimmy hats, the helmet, the silencer. In some cases, in my case, what was it like?
That must have been a Netherlands thing, or no?
No, that's an Eritrean thing actually. For us, we said the rubber, because I remember when this was in the 90s for me, the late 90s. I remember just on the other side of the neighborhood where I lived in, there used to be a ball court, and at night, the street lights didn't work out, didn't work so properly. So I remember it's like that used to be a hookup spot for a lot of couples and shit. And the next day, you probably see used condoms littered all over the block.
Yeah.
Just outside the ball courts.
If you knew what they were.
I knew what they were. I was like, oh shit, get the fuck out of here! Trying to watch your step. It was messed up. But I remember, like what you said, you lost a relative and shit. I remember my parents coming home from a funeral. This was in 2005. And my father was kind of devastated because it was a friend of his who passed away from that disease. And he was like looking at me like, don't say, I don't want to lose you. Because, he was always afraid, something was going to happen to me. But I was like, I don't want to lose you, but please tell me you're using protection. If you are sexually active, I said, always. In fact, I don't mess around unless I'm getting tested. I mean, when you guys were coming up, you might remember Salt and Pepper had that song called Let's Talk About Sex.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
But that was part of that whole conscious push in the 90s where this disease.
Got a lot of echoes.
Salute, Big Sarge.
Hey, Sarge.
So, yeah, that's what it was. It was.
I'll be back. Put my headphones in.
Okay.
Roger that, sir.
Roger that.
Go ahead, finish up, Artisan.
No, I was saying that was part of the push in the 90s to get people aware of this and to have people doing safe sex, because there was so many people dropping off, dying of this shit. That's when you get movies like Philadelphia coming out and stuff like that, of highlighting these struggles of gay men dying of this disease, and really bringing that awareness to it in at least the Black hip hop community, that this is something that you should actually be worried about, and using that as a tool, in a sense, for some activism to get people aware and moving in that direction. Because if you look at 90s hip hop, talking about Jimmy hats and shit like that is all through it. It's all in there.
Yeah.
I mean,
I remember, was it oh, go ahead, sorry.
Miles, no.
I want to say it was like, I can think of several songs. I remember, there's a couple songs on Redman's first album, What the Album, about that situation. There was also Michael, if you guys remember, huh? What was that, Taco
West
Techie?
had a few songs.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Also, I remember there's one name I can think of. A lot of people don't know this, don't remember this name. Young man, he was 19 years old when he died in 91. His name was Ryan White. You're not going to remember this person's name, but what you might remember was this was the young man in the video, or who the song Michael Jackson's "Gone Too Soon" was dedicated to.
Oh yeah, the kid that got it through the blood transfusion.
No, well, actually, blood product, because he was a hemophiliac, just like. But yeah, but
Yeah,
Arthur Ashe
blood
did
transfusion,
get through a blood transfusion as well, if you might remember. Arthur Ashe.
You digress.
the tennis player. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, he came out. Well, he came out HIV. He came out about his AIDS diagnosis in '88. He died in '93. Magic came out in was it November of '91, wasn't it?
Sounds about right.
All right. So, was there anything else you guys want to talk about Gen X? We can't spend 30 minutes just talking about AIDS. There's a lot more to do with Gen X than just AIDS.
Yeah, okay. All right, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
But
Gen
this
X
is
is
very
the
important
topic.
because the red ribbon has been over their shadows and over
Okay.
our shadows as well.
Okay,
So, I'm sorry.
Got it. I got it. But what's next on Gen X? Because
Video games?
we already went over video games.
Oh man, I was hoping we could talk a little more about it, but
I already
okay.
went over the crack era too, huh?
I would say the next thing that you would look at is how, which is at least interesting to me, is how Generation X tries to make up or replace for the sins of what happened to the generation before. Gen X tries to make up for it a lot with their kids, and what I find the most interesting about people in my cohort is how many of them actually tried to have full functioning families and how many of them got into teaching after that. Like a lot of Gen Xers, especially even just from my high school, really got into teaching because that's where you saw them really connected a lot with their teachers who actually gave a damn about them and really connecting with them and idolizing them in a sense that they actually followed them into the teaching profession. So you think of Dr. Tia-san, who is a teacher. Somewhere in there was a teacher that actually gave a damn about him enough to push him. And I think he's told his story about that, about the teacher or professor who pushed him into going through this college stuff. You think of New Stuff, who's a teacher. There is some influence there. Gen Xers, we were dealing with the onset of all that feminism shit in schools. So it was a lot of female and white teachers who was, look, I got suspended a lot for some dumb shit that I shouldn't even got suspended for. But it was always behind some white teacher wanting to deal with me. Want to deal with me in some fucked up way. So much so that I have to end up having my own table sitting next to the teacher in class because she don't want me mixing with the other kids. So, and I wasn't even doing anything bad. But seeing how somewhere in there was a teacher that made a difference to them, and they end up getting into the teaching profession behind that was really interesting to me because there were a lot of things that Gen Xers fell into that I don't think culturally we always did, that people didn't always do. But to me, it's an offset for what they knew what was lacking in their lives, and they go out into the world to try to provide what was lacking in their lives.
I do see that a lot in my older brother, man. He definitely be trying to make up for past generational sins and even his own sins because he's Mr. Rogers compared to what he used to be. And sometimes he overshoots that, but I understand where he's coming from because, I remember my mom sending him down in the basement, the cold ass basement, and nothing but his drawers and shit like that. Bullshit, you know what I'm saying? I remember all that shit, what he had to go through and all that, and I'm like, God damn, you know what I'm saying? I was too young to do something at the time, of course, you 6 or whatever and all that, and but I remember how a lot of shit affected my big bro. So when certain things come up, or even if he shed tears in front of me, I don't judge him at all because I'm like, yeah, man, you been through it, bro. Even if now technically I have the harder life than you have at this point, but because I saw you go through that shit before, I was more equipped to deal with it later. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. But
Yeah,
that's how
absolutely.
we all learn. That's why I think that millennials, in a sense, the pushback that millennials give on some things, or some millennials give on this dating, mating, and these kids and shit, is because they saw their Gen X brothers and sisters going through it, and they're like, "Fuck that! I don't want no parts of that shit."
Yeah,
Like, no
man, we
way,
get
no
real
sir.
emotional about
I
that
don't
shit
do
because
this.
I mean, a lot of people don't come out and say that shit, and they make it sound like it's just they make it sound like something else when they don't really outline the playbook and the timeline and why they came to that conclusion, especially when Gen X is concerned, man, because that's a really important piece to display and present or why you think the way you do. It ain't just a lot of people. It ain't just early millennials. You didn't just pull it out your ass. No, I mean, I've been with boomers. I was raised by nothing but boomers, shit like that. But then with the Gen X, especially my older brother, I saw a different side. But he still was trying to pass on, what they taught him as well. And we didn't really make that, memory handshake till later. Like, oh man, my dad was teaching you this before he taught me that. He's like, well, yeah, man, your dad was A1 and X, Y, and Z, and that's why me and him get along. And I'm like, man, this makes sense now. This is connecting dots. But with
Yeah,
me, it was more, I was his direct son, so it was more cold and callous. As with my older brother, there was more of a teaching moment. You know what I'm saying?
yeah. I saw that with my mother and my younger brother. That's why I came up with the term Gen X as being a crash test dummy, because all the stuff that she did with me, she did not do with my younger brother. It was like, okay, this didn't work, so I'm going to turn around and teach you this and let you do this. But I'm gonna see what happens with this one. Okay, it's not working.
Yes.
It's not working. It's not giving me good results. Okay, you don't do this. I'm gonna do this with you. That's always what it looked like. It's like, okay, I'm getting to go through all this hardship and bullshit.
Hey,
While I
Artie.
can look at the person behind me and see him like, you ain't got to deal with none of these responsibilities. You getting to be real free, nigga.
I literally saw that the difference between my older brother and younger brother. Just to say that, I literally saw the difference with how my mom treated my older brother compared to my younger brother, and it was like, yo, what the fuck? I mean, I was away most of the time because my dad took custody and all that good stuff and all that, and I would come back and forth. So I had that benefit of having a father and grandfather, but my brothers did not. And I saw the drastic difference between how my mom was treating my little brother, coddling him too much and all that. So now I got to make up for lost time and kind of pull him up to me and my older brother's level to compare to how harshly she used to treat my older brother, who was a Gen Xer, and it was really fucked up. And my older brother really had to think fast, learn quick, and he's been a master mechanic for only like 25 years, over 20, well, more than that actually. He's 43, yeah. So I'm so proud of my Gen Xer big brother and what he did and what accomplished despite everything else. But he looks at me as next one up, and I got to fill that void for him. That's part of the reason why I'm making this move and everything else. But yeah, I'll rest on that.
Hey, Artie. Were you an oldest child?
What was that, Aquateki?
Were you an oldest child?
Yes, I'm the oldest child. So yeah, I get the
okay.
oldest child struggle. Oldest child, oldest grandchild.
Yeah, we get to be the guinea pigs for a whole lot of
Yes,
stuff.
we do. The oldest
Been
child should
there,
be able to
done
do all
that.
to itself. The oldest child should have their own fucking union. I'm serious. We should pay dues and have monthly
Yes, we
meetings.
Y'all really should.
We
I'm
need
the middle
t-shirts.
child.
Where's the
I know
office
that.
at, Artisan? I want to be the first to sign up.
Yeah, oldest children get a lot of bullshit just in general, and part of it is the responsibility of an adult without being recognized as an adult in the situation. I mean, when my brother started getting a little older, keeping his ass in line was a pain in the ass. And I had to get him calling his grandmother to try to come harass me over the phone. Don't be doing that to him. You can give him brain damage. Just like, this little motherfucker not doing what he's supposed to be doing. My mother told me to make sure he doing this. He ain't doing it. Now it means he got to get his ass kicked a little bit, because that's how it worked for me. I'm getting my ass kicked when I do following the rules. So look, he gonna have to get it a little bit. It's not I'm gonna call somebody else and they gonna impose their authority in this situation and tell me I'm gonna be in trouble. Look, fuck all that. Look, my mother told me to do this and he ain't doing this. He needs to do his chores. He needs to do his goddamn homework. Look, I got to deal with the situation while you're still trying to undermine my authority in this situation.
Right.
So it's a different struggle to go on, because you're constantly balancing all this shit between other adults and stuff where they want you to have these responsibilities, but you can't be an adult in a situation and say, look, I don't even want this shit. Well, you're gonna have to do it regardless. That's why as an oldest, it's never up to you. Your feelings and your concerns is off the fucking table now. You have been given this responsibility. That's it. It's done. You nominated.
Yep.
Now make sure all this stuff run the way it's supposed to run when I'm here. Make sure it run the same way, and I'm out.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that was
I just
exactly
want to
what
play
my
outside
brother used
too.
to do.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. God damn it, man. You see, you're kicking up memories and shit now, because that's exactly what the older brother used to do. And he collected a lot of dots for me and shit when I was confused. And I'm eternally grateful for him for that, because I'm like, because, you know, I got to deal with 3 different generations now. The boomers, the Gen Xers, and then the people under me now. And, you know, how you going to liaison and explain all this shit at once?
Hey, like me and my brother, in some senses, I'm waiting for, you know, the elders to all be gone so me and him can get on a real good accord with each other. But because of that intervention of all the other elders and not understanding the oldest child struggle, like, oh, you was a punk because you did this and that, motherfucker, I was being responsible. I had to. I didn't have the option of saying, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to just do what I want to and, you know, fuck everybody else. I didn't have that option. The people above me had it. The people below me had it. I did not have that option. So when I had my own kids, that's what I taught them. Understand where your choices are.
Yep.
Understand where your choices are. And where the choice that you make leads. Because as long as you know where it's going to lead, I don't have a problem with you making a choice. It's going to be yours to make. Because I didn't have a lot of damn choices. I had responsibilities, no choices. It was just what I was supposed to be doing. That's just it. It was responsible. I got to help my mama. You know, in that situation. And as I got older, I didn't get the same resentment that my mother had for her mother putting her in the same situation. I didn't have the same resentment. I was a little pissy about it, but I understood it made me into the man I am. That I can always stand on my own. And like Bruce Almighty was saying, I'm comfortable being by myself, and motherfuckers think it's weird. It's not, because that's how I grew up the whole time. I had to be on my own, to my own devices. I didn't have anybody fawning over me and helicoptering like some of the millennials had, where the parents is all up in their face all the time. Those are extra parents trying to make up for what wasn't done for them, and they going way too overboard, like B.A. was saying. They're going way too over. That's where helicopter parenting came from. It wasn't from no boomers. It was from Gen Xers trying to really be the parents that they never fucking had and be all in their kids' life. And you see how that fucks them up too. You gotta find your balance with that shit.
Since we only got 2 more minutes, let the last 2 people that came up here talk. Uncle Techie and Super Fidelis, y'all got anything to say? Y'all got 2 minutes.
You know what? The only thing I can do is, only thing I can do is make my closing statement, man. I'm not Generation X, so I can't really speak on it like that. But thanks for letting me up to hear the Generation Xers, you know, talk about their life experience, you know, especially being the older ones that have the responsibilities of adults but are not recognized as such. But with that said, I say something for those. Salute. And thanks for having me up, Art.
No problem. Uncle Techie?
Yes, I can definitely say that looking back here, there's definitely a difference between X and everybody who came after us. Even looking at my own siblings, there's just a difference in how we perceive the world, what our mentality is. And even though we didn't grow up in like a single parent home, we actually had both of our parents up until we were like full-fledged adults, as full-fledged adults. But even still, I think it's just the environment that we're in that, I don't know, maybe the X's are last of a breed.
Maybe. Hopefully, in some senses.
Yeah, we hope.
In some senses, hopefully. That was a conversation I had with my ex-wife before, and I talked about the dysfunction that Xers have, and that hopefully we don't pass it on to our kids and it dies with us, so it doesn't go forward, because it does need to. Some of this shit needs to go away. all of this shit don't need to stay. We don't need all of this for another generation, fucking up another generation down the line. We don't need it. It needs to die with the generation that it came in with. Some of it does. It's just what it is.
Yeah. But anyway, guys, I appreciate you guys for coming up. Like I said, I may do another part 2 since this was a little bit shorter than the rest of them, and I might do a part 2 of millennials if people want it. Just
I want it because I want to hear millennials talk.
You will definitely hear.
It's only fair, you know. It's only fair.
Yeah,
I did a millennials panel, but he's talking about doing a part 2.
I understand. I just wasn't. Go ahead, though, Art, man. My fault.
But I'll put it to a vote, and if whatever part 2 you guys want to get it held on, then y'all vote on it, and I'll do it.
Because I feel like there's 2 different types and generations of millennials, and I think me and you on one side are, and then the rest on the other, or not the rest, but other people on the other side. So I think we gotta, connect some dots like the Gen Xers done for us so masterfully over the time and years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean,
Man.
You can't hate the 90s babies. You can't hate the motherfuckers that are born in the 90s.
I'm not hating you.
Why not?
He was at a disconnect from all this, and I'm like, God damn, man, I should have said something more and taught you more. And just like my Gen Xer big brother did for me, I should have probably did more of that for you, but I was always away. I was always that wayward soldier. And now I'm seeing results of what's happening and what's going on with your generation. And I kind of feel like I'm responsible, but we'll get into that.
The only thing I can say about that is like this: if you're still complaining about the same thing at 20 and you're now 30, you haven't grown as a person.
At least we can say we did that.
Yeah, I would say this. It may not be that you haven't grown as a person. It may more so be that you have not addressed that and dealt with it. You haven't either dealt with it and resolved it or made your peace with it, that it's going to remain unfucking resolved. That's the problem. That's why that kind of trauma and stuff lingers for so long. It's just like a scar that you never let heal because you keep pulling the scab off of that motherfucker. It's never going to heal if you keep picking at it.
And that's how you don't grow. You
either put some ointment on that bitch and leave it alone, or
aloe vera.
Just deal with the scar, motherfucker.
But to deal with that, you have to grow.
Yeah,
and that's
you have to grow enough to understand it.
Yeah. And if you're still complaining about the same issues that you did at 20, that's what I said. You haven't dealt with your issues. So that means you have not grown past them. I mean, I don't complain about the same things I did when I was 20 because I've grown past that. I don't need anymore. I ain't 20. I'm a 40-year-old old ass man that got fucking back problems when he wakes up and trying to get out of bed.
He was an old ass man.
Well, damn, all right, in that case, I'm ancient, man. I damn sure ain't got shit to complain about.
Yo, your bookers are doing well good appearance and health wise lately, man. People be telling me they 60 and shit. I'm like, what the fuck? Oh, you sure?
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Wait, a bad back.
Millennials is made kind of weak nowadays. They got peanut allergies and all kind of shit. So don't worry.
A bad back? What'd you do? Throw your back out, just lifting some brioche buns or some shit?
Yeah, the big girl.
Look, artwork hard, y'all. Cut them some slack.
I'm busting my ass on my job, and I gotta do the fair this year. Fuck y'all.
Yeah, but we try to overcompensate. The later ones try to overcompensate for a lot of shit, man. So sometimes we get into the John Henry effect. So I get what art.
Yeah.
What did your boss told you, Artist MC?
What's that?
You are what was it? A labor hoe?
Oh, that wasn't my boss. That was actually Charles. That was the first dude I worked with in the trade. Yeah. So you a hoe.
You're a hoe.
You're a hoe. You're using your body for money. Just understand that shit. And the old black man told me that shit like first day. You're a hoe.
Yeah, I'm a hoe.
You tripping?
What's up, my nigga?
Like that.
You a hoe. Yeah, like that. Like that's the
You're a
introduction.
hoe.
You a hoe.
I said that you's a hoe.
Hey, speaking of hoes, back in the heyday of Ice-T said this. He had two views of people. Either you were a pimp or a hoe. If you were a pimp, that meant that you were the boss of the office, where you worked. If you was a hoe, you were the one under supervision of that boss. That's the way he saw it. And back in those days, it damn sure seemed that way.
Well, shit. I put it to you like this: I'm a head slut.
You mean the bottom bitch?
Oh no. When he say he's a head slut, see he's moved from the bottom bitch to the madam. He running his own shop now.
Oh, brilliant. I see.
That's it.
Understand? Art's in charge now. You see what I'm saying?
He's the head bitch in charge. Okay, that makes sense.
Hell yeah, that's how
HBIC.
no supervision really. But yeah, you about to, but you still got to deal with the bullshit. You got to manage these other hoes now. I get what you're saying. I feel you are.
A lot of baby powder be involved and shit.
Yep.
Listen, man, it ain't no fun running a whorehouse, man.
Shout out to Richard Pryor's grandma.
Oh god.
Richard Pryor's grandma was a madam. Everybody forgets about that.
Is the analogies hitting you, Art, like they're hitting me right now? God damn, Art.
Hey, at least
us later in millennials. God damn.
But anyway, guys, I'll holler at you guys later at 10:30 Eastern Standard Time, so I can do my open Saturday hangout. So I can catch all of you guys there.
Yes,
All right.
thanks for having me up.
Oh, I will. I'll go get something.
Thanks for having me over. Yeah, you
Salute, y'all.
might as well go see a chiropractor while you're at it. Get your back straightened out. Get that crack. Later.
This guy.
We
All
work
right,
hard.
guys.
What?
All right, peace, everyone.
What? I said let him go go see a chiropractor. Get his back straightened out. What? Am I wrong for that?
You ain't gotta say it like that though.
Hey. crack. Hey, at least it's better than the Martin Lawrence.
Better to get the crack than to get pins.
Prime example, the king, Ronnie Coleman.
This guy. All right, guys. I'll holler at you later.
All right, one.